So in the previous lecture, we were discussing this. Uh, Scholars were trying to determine the human personality on the basis of climate. So different scholars put forward their views that in cold climates people are brave but they lack emotions. People of tropics, warm areas, they are lacking in spirit but they are more emotional. So these were all speculations. They were not having any sound basis. They were not having any sound basis for their scientific logic. So this sort of conclusion is very difficult to substantiate because human personality, human character is the result of so many factors. You cannot attribute one particular factor solely responsible for the entire human personality or human character. Yes, it may be true. Yes, it is true that yes, climate affect human behavior at times. But climate is not the sole determinant of human character, isn't it? So this sort of conclusion is very difficult to substantiate because climate is only one of the many factors which affect human personality or human activity. Yes, it has been proven with logic and justification that yes, climate affects human behavior to an extent. There clear statistical evidence of correlation between crime, suicide, and weather. In a particular weather or particular climate, the rate of crime, suicide, depression, they increases. And certain types of climate are prone to a certain illness or disease. For example, in tundra climate, in tundra region, 6 months of winters are there, 6 months of summers, and in winters it's completely dark. Matlab sun never rises. In tundra climate during winters, the sun does not appear above the horizon. Continuous months of relative darkness. Yes, anybody, he will get depressed in such climate. What is fine? This continuous months of relative darkness have depressing influence. You need not go much far. You can take the example in your winters when sun does not rise. हम लोग क्या अभी winters में अगर sun 5-7 दिन ना निकले ना तो we are having depressing impact. And in tundra climate, sun does not rise above the horizon for several months. Yes, it no doubt. In pitch dark days and nights, they are completely dark. Sun does not rise. It has depressing impact on those people. So in tundra climate, despite the adaptation, best of adaptation, therefore they are surviving. But yes, for some people, or for most of them, they have become accustomed to it. ऐसा नहीं है इनको impact नहीं पड़ता. They have become accustomed to it. But in our place, you can see, or those people who cannot get accustomed to it, they have suicidal tendencies. They get depressed. Continuous months of relative darkness lead to depressing influence, which affects the temperament and morale of the people. Such conditions frequently brings mental disorder, anxiety, depression, fits of madness, suicide. Now, in tundra regions, food availability is confined to summer months. In winter months, basically they are dark and cold, blizzard, storms are there. Availability of food is highly restricted. Therefore, as we move towards poles, the size of animals goes on increasing because of increasing cover of thick fur covering, as well as they can store food in their body because during winters they have to go for hibernation. They have to subsist on that accumulated fat. तो यहाँ पर क्या होता है, what we see in such circumstances, the availability of food is highly limited during winter season. Long, dark, dreaded winters with stormy blizzards, snowstorms going over there. So here there's a dearth of food supply during winters. So a custom has evolved in these areas that in Eskimos, the elderly people during night, they escape out of their dwellings. Igloos में से चुपचाप, without letting all others know, all others are sleeping, they move out of the igloos. Why? They know they are elderly and there's food in short supply and younger siblings are not having adequate food. So they move out of the igloos and start taking off their clothes, move barefoot, nange pair, and to far off unknown areas. They completely take off their clothes, and due to cold, they die. So as they can preserve food for their younger siblings. So in such climate, the availability of food is limited. Long, dark, dreaded winters, the elderly people demonstrate unique character, unique behavior. They crawl out of the igloos, move barefoot on ice. After reaching unknown destination, they remove their fur clothing and die. Now what has been found, with increasing technology, man have evolved because of technological development, man has evolved the technique of modifying the climate. In advanced societies, now everywhere we have central heating system and central cooling system. Even in the harshest of winters, we can survive inside because of central heating and central cooling system that will maintain adequate temperature. But still, man has not evolved technique to control the climate outdoors. Yes, indoors. Advanced societies and like India also, we have evolved techniques of maintaining the temperature. But that is confined to indoors. But man has not developed any technique so that he can control the climate outdoors. So attempts to affect major modification to climate are very limited, that are indoors. Outdoor climate man has not been able to control, and climate remains a potent influence on human activity. Climate has its potent impact. Ab, you see, it is climate that determines the physical properties of soil. Yes, climate by way of temperature and precipitation, whether soil will be saline, alkaline, acidic, neutral. It depends on climate. Climate determines the properties of soil, and the soil nature of soil determines the cropping pattern. What all crops will be grown? Cropping pattern determines the dietary plan. What diet will be eaten? And this diet determines the physique and attitude of the people. भाई क्या खाओगे, that will determine your physique. If the soil is poor, nomadic herding will be there, non-veg will be eaten, physically you may be strong, and your attitude will be very violent. Non-vegetarian diet promote violent attitude, aggressive attitude, and physically they may be strong. So climate is playing a very important role in determining the physique of the people. What crops can be grown, that will determine the diet, that will determine the physique, and the diet also determine the attitude, because what you eat has deep impact on your mind. So it is not that environment influences man only by its abundance and range of resources. Environment also impact man by short-term variation in the seasonal rhythms of seasons. भाई एक तो environment impact man by way of its range and abundance of resources. Secondly, environment also impact man by its seasonal rhythms of seasons. Changing seasons basically closely regulate the nature of agriculture. भाई रबी क्रॉप विंटर्स में होगी, खरीफ क्रॉप रेनी सीजन में होगी, जायद क्रॉप जायद सीजन में होगी. What will be grown also determines on seasonal rhythms. Seasonal rhythms determine the agriculture as well as migratory behavior of the animals and fishes, which dominate the lives of hunter, fisherman and agriculturalist. भाई seasonal rhythms define करती है ना, भाई किस सीजन में क्या ग्रो करोगे, that is determined by climate, and accordingly human activity is defined by it. If rabi season is there, you will grow a particular crop, your activity will be different. In particular season, fishes are in abundance. In particular season, hunting is in abundance, isn't it? With changing seasons, they determine the activity of agriculturalists, fishermen, hunters, isn't it? Now, at times, these seasons falter. And when the seasons falter, for example, failure of monsoon. brings severe hardship in India. Season rhythms falter, kabhi monsoon fail ho jata hai. That brings total disaster in that region. So climate has huge impact on human activity. Another type of change of weather environment is rapid, like earthquake, floods, cyclones. These are climatic events having huge impact on human activity and human race. Despite all these limitations, all these setbacks, man has extended his dominion on to almost every part of the earth. You can see human habitations in almost every part of the earth, even if they may be inhospitable. Man has extended his domain to every part of the earth and has always tried to increase his ability to maximize the use of the environment in which he lives. Man has not only extended his domain to every part of the earth, in every part, he has also always tried to extract maximum from nature. Yes, they say this dominion of man over nature can never be complete. We cannot completely control nature because of powerful restraint put by nature. But geographers now they are focusing. अब फोकस क्या है हमारा, पूरी दुनिया का फोकस क्या है? The geographers are increasingly turning their attention towards the study of man's impact on environment. The way the man is trying to dominate over the environment, now the focus is what is the impact of what is the impact when geography study of man's impact on environment. मतलब क्या impact हो रहा है, कैसे? How man is operating on the environment first. Second, to identify the consequences of man's impact on environment, how man is operating on environment and what will be the consequences of this operations, and how man it can best be managed so that environmental degradation is minimal. यही तो फोकस है आजकल. आजकल फोकस क्या है कि how the study of man's impact on environment, how man is operating on environment, what will be the impact of this operation, and how it can best be managed. So now we are shifting our focus on, up till now we were discussing environmental impact on man. Now we are discussing man's impact on environment. Man's impact on environment. What has been the man's impact on environment? As we discussed, environment undoubtedly influences man, and man in turn changes his environment. Environment impact on man. Man tries to adapt with the environment, and in this process of adaptation, he also introduces changes in the environment. Environment influences man, man changes environment, and the interaction between man and environment is so intricate that it is difficult to know when environmental impact on man ceases and man's impact on environment begins. Because when man starts interacting with the environment, initial stages he always try to adapt and adjust with the environment, and this process of adapting and adjustment he started modifying the environment, and this is very difficult to find out when environment's impact on man ceases and man's impact on environment begins, because this relationship is very intricate. Are you getting this? Now, before industrial revolution, before Newtonian era, the man's rate of exploitation of nature was slow, so slow that nature was in a position to recycle its resources. The homeostasis was maintained. It used to maintain it balance. But the scale of man's impact on environment has accelerated rapidly after industrial revolution, increase in technology with the advent of machine age. The rate and the pace and the intensity with which man has started exploiting the nature has increased exponentially. It is very difficult to define, so much so हम आज की तारीख में we cannot define natural environment. It is impossible to define, very difficult to define natural environment. Many landscape which appear to be natural are actually man-made. हम जिनको natural आज मानते हैं, like wheat, barley, olive trees, wines found so abundant in Mediterranean climate are not natural. They are purely man-made. Apple and almond orchards in Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, they appear to be so natural. They are all man-made. तो कौन सा नेचुरल एनवायरनमेंट है? नेचुरल एनवायरनमेंट को आइडेंटिफाई करना ही बहुत मुश्किल है, बिकॉज नेचर हैज बीन सो इंटेंसिवली मॉडिफाइड बाय ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी. तो अब दीज चेंजेस आदमी ने क्यों किए नेचर में, क्यों किए और कैसे किए? Why? So that nature, he can expedite the rate of production, natural production, to fulfill his increasing needs and desires. ऐसा क्यों हुआ? Let us go to the root. The changes that have been brought about as a result of man's attempt to modify the earth, man has trying to modify the earth to increase the capacity of the earth to sustain more and more population. Man is trying to modify the nature to enhance its productivity. That is, man's attempt to modify earth to increase its capacity to support him and to satisfy his increasing range of needs and desires. There's enough for need but not for greed. Man's needs and desires are increasing. To fulfill his increasing needs and desires, he started modifying nature to provide him life support system. Now let us discuss in very systematic way how man achieved these ends, how man fulfilled his desires. How man fulfilled his desires, he adopted two methods. मतलब man started modifying the nature to satisfy his increasing range of needs and desires. Of how man tried to fulfill this, he adopted two methods to fulfill his increasing range of needs and desires. पहला, जानते हो, life emerged in East Africa, then in the plateau of Anatolia agriculture developed. Later on man spread to different parts of the world. First, man expanded his acumen, settled area. He extended his settled area all across the earth. How man, ये हम लोग क्या डिस्कस कर रहे हैं? How man expedited, how man modified the earth to so that it may support his increasing needs and desires. कैसे आदमी ने, how man fulfilled his needs and desires by modifying the earth. He adopted two methods. First, the area of acumen. Acumen means settled, inhabited area. The area of acumen, inhabited area, has been got expanded in number of ways. जहां आदमी रहता है ना, it expanded. कैसे? The most obvious is series of migration by which man has spread to almost every part of the earth. कैसे? सबसे पहले तो थे यूरोपियंस आउट माइग्रेटेड, कोलंबस पहुंच गया नॉर्थ अमेरिका, एंड यूरोपियंस inhabited the virgin lands of North America, South America, South Africa, Australia. They all are inhabited by Europeans. Yes, North America, South America, South Africa, and Australia. These were virgin lands. They were inhabited by Europeans. Out-migration, outpouring of Europeans. Second, this settled area was further extended with the help of technology. How? See, certain areas were not suitable for settlement. Like I discussed about Italy, Peninsula Italy. I told you in Peninsula Italy, This is southern slopes of Alps. This is Apennine range. In Peninsula Italy, the coastal area was swampy and marshy. The coastal area was completely swampy and marshy, inhabited by mosquitoes. Malaria was common. These swamps and marshes were drained away. They were drained away. And now hard wheat is grown. And this gave way for human habitation. Once the swamps were drained away, people started inhabiting this. New areas of human acumen or human occupancy have been created by draining the swampy and marshy area. People started settling there. In certain parts of Europe, like Netherlands, the coastal area of Netherlands, basically where the major cities of Netherlands are located, that is below sea level. They have reclaimed the sea floor. They built dikes मतलब walls बनाई उन्होंने walls, and pumped out the sea water and reclaimed that sea floor and transformed into land. Such land which is reclaimed from sea is known as polder, Polder. So in Netherlands, they reclaimed the land from sea by creating dikes, walls, and pumping out water, and thereby they reclaimed the land from the sea. And these lands are known as polder. Randstad, where the Randstad is located, densely populated urban area of Netherlands. So certain sea floor were reclaimed in the form of polders, and in those areas where the water scarcity was there, like in Africa, large scale irrigation scheme like Aswan Dam on Egypt, with the construction of Aswan Dam in Egypt, huge people started living over there because of availability of water. So by way of technology, man also inhabited certain areas. Now, there are certain areas which are at margin of cultivation. What do you mean by margin of cultivation? These are those areas where crops of vegetation can barely subsist. Anyhow, they can subsist in a very fragile conditions. मतलब margins of cultivation का मतलब जानते हो? Margins of cultivation simply means those areas where cultivation is very difficult, crops can barely subsist. So what did man did? Man developed drought resistant crops, drought resistant animals, and basically this enabled more and more inhabited area. The margins of cultivation has been extended by development of drought tolerant plants, breeding animals capable of thriving in hot climates, that is drought resistant animals, developing new methods of dry farming. So these margins of cultivation were further extended. Now, technology. With the development of technology, machine age came. With the advent of machine age, the demand for raw material increased. Technology led to the development of machines, and by machines, the demand of minerals increased. As a result, we find human settlements in most hostile or inhospitable areas, like oil fields in Sahara deserts. You can find high altitude mines in Andes in Bolivia, Potosi, tin mining at such high latitude, altiplano. Klondike and El Dorado mine in Canada's Yukon Territory in such hostile climate. Kalgoorlie and Coolgardie gold mines of Australia in such hot deserts. This has been made possible because of technology generated, expedited, increased the demand for minerals, and in search of these minerals, man established settlements in such inhospitable areas. This was the first of the two. First reason. Two methods नहीं, दो methods किए ना. How man has to fulfill his increasing range of needs and desires, how and man modified the earth. तो एक तो ये था first one, basically where we discussed कि man started increasing his acumen. मतलब man started increasing his inhabited area over the earth, so he may cover more and more earth by migration, by मतलब this technology draining away swampy areas, by extending cultivation in marginal lands, isn't it? Second, man, wherever he got settled, started intensifying the use of environment. First, he got spread to the entire planet, and then second method, that is even more important, man has increased the intensity of use of environment because of technology, the intensification, the intense utilization of natural resources, intensified his capacity to use the environment to increase its capacity. For example, in agriculture, high yielding varieties were developed. To sustain them, chemical fertilizer and chemical pesticide was developed to ensure maximum number of crops. These crops are high yielding and early maturing. So they required high chemical doses of fertilizer, high chemical pesticides, and to expedite the pre-harvesting and post-harvesting operation, mechanization. So machines were developed. So he could harness, now he can harness 2 to 3 crops a year. Whereas he was able to harness only one crop, now he is harnessing from the same land 2 to 3 crops. Agriculture productivity, agriculture efficiency, and agriculture intensity all have increased because of when he is harnessing 2 to 3 crops a year. Now has increased the agriculture productivity, agriculture efficiency, and agriculture intensity. Intense use of factors of production. High yielding animals have been bred, which can yield more. Now, in industry, new machines and processes have been developed to produce large quantities of goods. और ऐसे नए goods भी बन गए which were not existing previously, like plastic, synthetic goods. New materials such as synthetic and plastic goods have created. So size and range of demand of raw material has greatly expanded. Not मतलब कुछ जैसे chlorofluorocarbon, it is gas that has purely man-made, like plastic and synthetic material which is non-biodegradable, that is purely man-made, that have also come into existence. अब हुआ क्या है, as a result of this, the living standards improved, first in developed world, later on in developing world. Living standard when improve, standard of living improve, life expectancy increase, threat to life decreases. Now what happened as a result, population living in advanced economy witnessed increase in standard of living, most of the life risk and uncertainties were removed. Now all this has been achieved not without a price. ऐसा नहीं है कि man has been exploiting nature intensively and that has gone unnoticed, that has been gone unnoticed by nature. Man has always paid a price. This has not been without a price. And some of the most serious problem like global warming, global climate change, pollution, depletion of resource, all these that man faces, all these challenges, serious problems man faces arise from the increasing demand that he is placing on environment. By global climate change, environmental pollution, global warming, depletion of resource क्यों हो रहा है? Because the pace at which the resources are being exploited is far beyond the capacity of nature to replenish it, and the pace at which that waste are being deposited in nature are far beyond the nature's capacity to absorb it. Per capita consumption of resource and per capita emission of waste has exceeded the nature's capacity, and that is causing global climate change, global warming, environmental degradation, and depletion of resources. Are you getting it? अब इसके why man's demand increased so drastically? इसके 4 factors हैं. Why humans' demand on nature has increased so fast? First, population growth. As the population will grow, more and more resources will be required to sustain the population, obviously. First is, as population continues to grow unabated, more land, more natural resources, more waste generation, है ना? The impact of environment will be adverse. भाई जैसे population बढ़ेगी, demand of land, demand of natural resource, food resource and waste generation all will increase. दिल्ली के आसपास ही पहाड़ क्यों हैं? Have you ever visited Delhi? When I visited Delhi for the first time, I was going towards Punjab. I saw huge mountains. I was surprised. Delhi is not a hilly area. Kude ke, these are landfills. Dumping of these waste. Huge towering mountains are there. I was new to Delhi at that time. I thought maybe some mountains might be there. They were not mountains. वो कूड़े के ढेर थे. And you will be surprised how tall they are. कुछ ऐसे ही चलता था, माउंट एवरेस्ट की टक्कर ले लेंगे वो. They are going on rising. So basically, what is happening? Waste generation is even more important. It is the inability of nature to absorb the waste that causes more harm than exploitation of resource. Waste generation is so. जैसे population बढ़ेगी, waste generation बढ़ेगा. Second चीज, rise in aspiration level. Second factor. Now, when your Acha, tell me one thing. Rise in aspiration when it takes place, when the disposable income increases, when you have more income, your per capita consumption, burger, pizza will increase. When your per capita consumption will increase, matlab it will multiply the effect of population growth. एक होता है population grows and relies on its basic needs. But when the disposable income increases, per capita consumption increases, per capita generation of waste increases, this impact of population growth is multiplied 10 times, 100 times. But it is your disposable per capita consumption of electricity of person in India and that of US is hugely different. The per capita environmental impact of man in India and US is different. Why? Because disposable income is more over there and per capita consumption of resource and per capita generation of waste is more. So rise in aspiration level, this happens because of increase in standard of living, increase in disposable income, per capita consumption and per capita generation of waste increases. This has multiplier effect on population. केवल population बढ़ना अफ्रीका में बढ़ रही है, ठीक है, लेकिन in developed countries the per capita consumption and generation of waste is huge. Second, yes, because people are not so much aware about the environment as they are more cautious about their living standard. See, your living standard, I will discuss later on. Economy and ecology is inversely proportional. मान लो तुमको बहुत living standard, you purchase Mercedes and you go out in the market, when you will move out of the Mercedes, you will be in the real environment full of pollution. You will have to, compromise has to be made between quality of living and quality of environment. I'll discuss this as a topic later on. But quality of living and quality of environment में compromise करना पड़ेगा. You can increase your level of living indoors, but when you will move outdoors, you will have to bear the consequences of polluted environment. Yes, of course. Yes. Now, rise in aspiration. Second point is population increase के बाद rise in aspiration. Aspiration कब बढ़ती है? जब पैसे होते हैं. This serves to multiply the impact of population growth. Standard of living are high in advanced economies. So their per capita consumption, per capita disposable income is more, with consequent high level of demand on resources and high generation of waste. It has been calculated that is birth of a child in America has 40 times more impact on environment than a birth of child in India because of per capita consumption of resource and per capita emission of waste. एक बच्चा जो अमेरिका में पैदा होता है उसका एनवायरनमेंट पे इम्पैक्ट 40 टाइम्स मोर होता है देन द बर्थ ऑफ अ चाइल्ड इन इंडिया बिकॉज ही विल the amount of resources that he will consume and the amount of waste that he will generate is 40 times more because they have advanced economy, high standard of living, high aspiration level, increase in per capita income, increased disposable income. Therefore, the impact of environment is more. अब क्या हो रहा है? Now, developing countries are also growing. Aspiration levels are also increasing in developing countries because of economic growth, economic development, their disposable income, per capita income is increasing. Standard of living in developing countries like India is increasing. So what is happening? Ultimately, nature is bearing the brunt. अब तक developed countries कर रहे थे. Now when developing countries are also improving the economy, the per capita income is increasing, disposable income is increasing, the command over the consumption of resources and generation of waste is also increasing in developing countries. That is further threatening the environment. मतलब that is accelerating that adverse impact on environmental degradation. Third, advance in technology. भैया देखो, सब कुछ टेक्नोलॉजी ने बेनिफिशियल भी है, एंड इट इज़ बाय वे ऑफ डेवलपमेंट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी द rate and the pace and the extent to which environment degradation, environmental exploitation has taken place is directly proportional to technology. Technological advances in technology, technological change is exponential, and man's power to change environment solely depends on technology. ये कहते हैं कि until 19th century, until steel plow was not invented, temperate grasslands were not completely cultivated. It was in 19th century with the invention of steel plow. For the first time, mid-latitude grasslands or temperate grasslands were cultivated for the first time. With the development of steam engine, until steam engine was not developed, all the species of whale were never hunted. It was for the first time when the steam engine was developed that all the species of whale started to be hunted. So it is technology that plays a very important role. और दूसरी बात यह टेक्नोलॉजी का रोल यह है कि entirely new substances have been introduced into the nature which are not natural, like DDT, chemical pesticides, synthetics, radioactive wastes. They were in nature, preserved inside. But once we started exploiting them, the waste that they generated, those such kind of waste were previously not there. Entirely new substances like synthetics, DDT, radioactive waste have been introduced into nature because of technology. So technological development has multiplied the ways and means through which man has impacted on environment. Finally, the most important factor in man's relationship with environment is his attitude. But attitude is the only thing that is the difference between a successful and a failure man. Mental capacity does not matter. It is the attitude that matter. What type of attitude you are having, that determines whether you will be healthy, happy and successful person in life or not. Mental capacity is not at all important, either to crack IAS or anything else. भाई इसको किसी दिन मैं तुम्हें समझाऊंगा अच्छे से. Whenever any event happens in our life, event is neutral. तुम जा रहे हो, तुम्हारी टांग टूट गई तो टूट गई, it's neutral. Any event, you attach meaning to it. Once you attach meaning to it, if you attach good meaning to it, it becomes a good event. If you attach bad meaning to it, it becomes a bad event. What type of meaning you are going to attach depends upon your attitude, and your attitude is shaped by the culture in which you live. हाथ टूटा है तुम्हारा, चाहे तुम, है ना, टेक एवरी एक्सपीरियंस एज अ ब्लेसिंग एंड स्टे ब्लेस्ड. जो हुआ अच्छे के लिए हुआ. Yes, and it is in adversity that new inventions takes place. It is in adversity you will find out new ways of living with a broken hand. Otherwise, you would have never come to know that you can also do this. So what happens? It is the attitude. अभी आगे डिस्कस करना है इसको बहुत डिटेल में, एटीट्यूड. अब एटीट्यूड, टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ साथ एटीट्यूड ऑफ मैन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. व्हाट इज हिज एटीट्यूड टुवर्ड्स एनवायरमेंट? In West, the attitude was nature as usufruct, usufruct. It is pronounced as usufruct. That is, nature has been created for human exploitation. आदमी के मजे के लिए. In Oriental world, the traditional concept was nature as nurture. Nature as guide. Nature will guide the man. Accordingly, man will behave. और वेस्ट में क्या था? नेचर एज यूसीफ्रक्ट. नेचर हैज बीन क्रिएटेड फॉर बीइंग एक्सप्लॉइटेड बाय मैन. और ये हमारे हमारे रिलीजियस स्क्रिप्चर्स में है. ये हमारे रिलीजियस स्क्रिप्चर में लिखा हुआ है, वेदास, दैट नेचर इज नर्चर. नेचर इज, वी टेक नेचर एज गॉड. कैलाश माउंटेन इज गॉड, गंगा रिवर इज गॉड, basically people tree is god, vegetation, river, mountain, we used to treat nature as god, and nature will show the way. Nature is the guide and man is subordinate to it. In west, इनकी जो बुक है, the first book, book of Genesis, इसमें क्या लिखा है मैं पढ़ के सुनाता हूं. इसमें ये लिखा है, अरे इंसानों, ये पानी में मछली, हवा में चिड़िया, ये सब तुम्हारे ऐश करने के लिए है. एक्सप्लॉइट इट. दिस इज व्हाट इज रिटन इन द बुक. एंड यू कैन सी द साइटेशंस इन वेदास दैट नेचर हैज ऑलवेज बीन ट्रीटेड अबव मैन. पेड़, हरे आम के पेड़ को नहीं काटना है, हमारे पीपल के पेड़ को नहीं काटना है. मतलब वी हैव, दे हैव बीन सेवरल रेस्ट्रिक्शंस. तो द वेस्टर्न कल्चर एटीट्यूड क्या है? Man is not part of culture. Man is apart from culture. In Oriental, in our world, man is not only part of nature, he is subordinate to nature. See the difference. In Western world, man is separate from nature. And what is nature? In tradition, this tradition springs from Book of Genesis. अगर तुम क्रिश्चियंस की वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड की सबसे पुरानी बुक पे जाओगे ना, बाइबल नहीं है, बुक ऑफ जेनेसिस, द फर्स्ट बुक. व्हाट इट सेज, द बुक ऑफ जेनेसिस, वेयर गॉड सेड, भगवान ने उनसे कहा, सेड अनटू देम, गॉड सेड अनटू देम, हैं? बेटा अब रामायण महाभारत ये माइथोलॉजी है कि इसको क्वेश्चन नहीं करना है. हमारे रिलीजियस स्क्रिप्चर्स है ना, वेदर दे आर लिटरेरी टेक्स्ट और हिस्टोरिकल टेक्स्ट, इट इज क्वेश्चनेबल. यू हैव, लेकिन दे आर रिलीजियस टेक्स्ट. रामायण महाभारत एक लिटरेरी बुक है या हिस्टोरिकल फैक्ट है, इस पर डिबेट नहीं करना. वो हमारे रिलीजन में दे आर एक्सेप्टेड. इन देयर रिलीजन पीपल वाज सबसर्विएंट टू रिलीजन. उनकी जो बुक ऑफ जेनेसिस है, what God says to them, it is mentioning what is your God's instruction to them. Our Vedas, it said it is written by God and they instruct the man to behave. हमारे वेदास में है ना सारा. And they say nature is nurture, nature will guide you. What their book says, book of Genesis किसी ने लिखी हो, Western world follows it. In book of Genesis it is written, God said, God ने कहा unto them, बी फ्रूटफुल एंड मल्टीप्लाई, खूब नंबर बढ़ाओ अपने, रिप्लेनिश द अर्थ, यूज द अर्थ एंड सबड्यू इट. सबड्यू मीन्स अर्थ इज सबऑर्डिनेट. हैव, मैन हैव डोमिनियन ओवर द फिश इन द सी, ओवर द फाउल इन द एयर एंड ओवर द एवरीथिंग दैट मूवथ अपॉन द अर्थ. मैन हैज सबऑर्डिनेशन ओवर इट. दैट इज मैन इज सुप्रीम. दैट इज मैन इज नेचर इज सबऑर्डिनेट टू मैन. In the East, we had this concept. Now, this concept was prevalent in ancient time, but in East, now, this is in theory, letter, not in spirit. It is not followed in spirit, only in letter. East may be, where ideally man is in harmony in nature, reality sets him apart from it. Economic attitude, with the development of technology, economic attitudes which see growth and progress and short-term economic gains as being more important than long-term environmental consequences. हमारे यहाँ भी क्या हो रहा है? Now we are not paying so much attention to them. Now short-term economic gains have become more important than long-term environmental consequences. Now, अब आ जाते हैं प्रेजेंट पे. All are accountable, both developing world after Paris Convention and developed world, all have equal responsibilities. भाई अब हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि पॉल्यूशन तो यूरोपियंस ने किया है। अगर टोटल पॉल्यूशन निकाला जाए तो हमारा पर कैपिटा एमिशन इज फार लेस। सी पर कैपिटा एमिशन ऑफ इंडिया, और कितना दिन हुए हमें इंडस्ट्रियलाइज हुए। लेकिन अब समस्या क्या आ गई है, अब तुम्हें मेन इशू समझाते हैं। इशू क्या आ गया है? until recently these attitudes were acceptable. Until recently means until 1960s 1970s कह सकते हो, यहां तक तो एक्सेप्टेबल था। These attitude, developing technology was acceptable, growth was acceptable, growth was a primary requirement, population was increasing, their large scale starvation and death were inevitable if high yielding varieties were not developed. If high yielding varieties were not developed, large scale death were inevitable. Until recently, these attitudes have been acceptable because growth has been possible and general condition of man has improved steadily. Economic activity led to economic development, and that led to human development measured in terms of social benefits. Every economic activity has a social cost and it has environmental cost. For example, green revolution was inevitable, it was required. Large scale starvation death could be averted only because of green revolution. This led to increase in food production. Green revolution had social cost, it had environmental cost, but increase in food production averted large scale starvation and death. नेट पे जाके ढूंढना, 1960s 70s में हम लोग कटोरा लेके अमेरिका के सामने जाते थे। कभी किसी, हमारे पास सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी नहीं थी खाने की, और अमेरिका भी सड़ा हुआ अनाज देता था। एट दैट टाइम भैया, जब सर्वाइवल इज एट स्टेक, यू डोंट नीड टू थिंक अबाउट एनवायरमेंट। पहले खुद सर्वाइव करो, नहीं तो पहले तुम ही निपट जाओगे, तो एनवायरमेंट का क्या करोगे? At that point of time, green revolution was inevitable, it was accepted. Environmental cost was there, yes. Increase in food production, human development, longevity increased, standard of living increased, human development, social benefit. Increase in disposable income, literacy increased. Yes, this is human development. Any economic activity is viable only until social benefits are more than environmental cost plus social cost. शुरू में initially food production was needed just to make survival possible. So increased use of chemical fertilizer, yes, increased use of pesticides, it continued, self-sufficiency reached, we started exploiting, per capita income increased, disposable income increased, further increase in production. Now, the further increase requires so much of chemical fertilizer and so much of pesticide, that this chemical fertilizer, when it percolated down to water, drinking water aquifer, it led to concentration of nitrates. This increased chemical fertilizer, when it remained in field, is led to biomagnification by way of bioconcentration, increased storage of non-biodegradable chemical pesticides or chemical fertilizer in the body, bioaccumulation, bioconcentration, increase in trophic level, biomagnification. When increase in this fertilizers, when they were washed through the fields into the water bodies, that led to eutrophication, that led to algal bloom, that led to depletion of this marine organisms like fishes. Further, increased use of pesticides led to death of micro decomposers, which were decomposers were killed, like bacteria, which are responsible for transforming organic matter to inorganic matter. So environmental cost was increasing, when there was not enough for need. It was indispensable. When they continued the 70s, 80s, 90s, then they realized now there's sufficient, but still they are using more and more doses of pesticide, insecticides, that is killing the micro decomposers or natural fertility of the soil. They are leading to eutrophication, algal bloom, depletion of fisheries, that is leading to biological magnification, that is by way of bioconcentration or bioaccumulation, that is leading to increased nitrification, that is leading to increased suspended load on in the rivers. Then they realized this environmental cost and then social cost. This pesticides and chemical fertilizer remained in food, and such food caused cancer, caused various types of disease. Social cost, मतलब यू आर अब ऑर्गेनिक फूड क्यों कर रहे हैं? बिकॉज केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर, केमिकल पेस्टिसाइड, इंडियन काउंसिल ऑफ मेडिकल रिसर्च ने पाया कि जो बोवाइन मिल्क है उसमें डीडीटी का कंटेंट इज फार मोर देन एडमिसिबल लिमिट्स, बिकॉज डीडीटी इतने लार्ज स्केल पे स्प्रेड होती थी बोवाइन मिल्क में. जो फूड हम खाते हैं उसमें दीज केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर एंड पेस्टिसाइड के रेजिड्यूज इतने मिलने लगे कि पीपल स्टार्टेड हैविंग वेरियस टाइप्स ऑफ हार्ट स्ट्रोक्स, डिजीज लाइक कैंसर, other diseases. So social cost of treating this disease, social cost of treating these disease and the economic cost of treating the environment exceeded the social benefit. Now there's enough for need, now we are increasing for greed. अब longevity बढ़ नहीं रही है. Now it has started declining. एक plateau आ गया है. Now we need second green revolution. We need to bring about changes in the economic activity which lead to such economic development that lead to human development and social benefit. As a stage has been reached that this has got reversed. The cost of treating the environment and the cost of treating the social cost and environmental cost has exceeded the social benefits derived from green revolution. So green revolution is no more viable. मैंने एक example दिया है green revolution का. तुम कोई भी एक्टिविटी ले सकते हो, उसके सोशल कॉस्ट होंगे, इन्वायरमेंटल कॉस्ट होगा और उसका सोशल बेनिफिट होगा. एंड व्हेन वी एस्टिमेट दिस एंड व्हाट वी फाउंड कि भाई अब तक जो चल रहा था अब नहीं चल सकता. नाउ वी हैव टू ब्रिंग अबाउट चेंजेस इन द मोड्स ऑफ इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी विच मे ब्रिंग अबाउट सच इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट दैट मे लीड टू ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट एंड इंक्रीज सोशल बेनिफिट. Until recently, these attitudes have been acceptable because growth has been made possible and the general condition of man has been steadily improving. 90s tak. Now, but there is an realization that man must learn to manage the environment more carefully than has been necessary in the past. Now, the pace of depletion and the rate of environmental degradation and social cost. दिल्ली में जैसे डीजल की बस चलती थी ना पहले, before CNG was introduced after 2002. Before that, in night nobody could see the stars, so much of pollution. 20% of the children below age of 14 were having asthma. The social benefit of transport, the social cost of medicine, the treatment had far exceeded the social cost of social benefit of transport. So CNG was introduced. अच्छा, तो अब ये कह रहे हैं कि now these activities cannot be sustained anymore. There was a time when they were acceptable. This realization has come about because it is clear that there are consequences of human activity. अब क्लियर हो गया है ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी के ऐसे कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस हैं विच कैन थ्रेटन द ह्यूमन लाइफ इटसेल्फ ऑन अर्थ. These human activity, if sustained unabated, then they have the potential of threatening the human life itself. कैसे भाई? हमने क्या किया है आज तक? इंसान ने एक नमक का टुकड़ा, चीनी का टुकड़ा भी नहीं बनाया है. जो भी बनाया है यहां से लेके बनाया है. हमने खुद कुछ भी क्रिएट नहीं किया है. सिंथेटिक भी क्रिएट किया तो यहाँ के ही सब्सटेंस से क्रिएट किया है. Whatever man has created, it has been created by the nature, by manipulating nature. हमने खुद क्रिएट नहीं किया, हमने केवल डिस्कवर किया है. अब वो क्या कहते हैं भाई, फॉसिल फ्यूल क्या थे? कोल, ऑयल, गैस, ऑल वाज प्रिजर्व्ड इन अर्थ. वी स्टार्टेड यूजिंग फॉसिल फ्यूल्स and we release these fossil fuels from earth to the atmosphere. This led to increase in greenhouse gases. When greenhouse gases increased, होता क्या है? हीट बजट अर्थ का क्या है? जितना इंसुलेशन सन से आता है in 24 hours entirely it is lost back to space. For 20 during daytime the atmospheric gases absorb some of the insulation directly from the sun. Some of the insulation when it is reflected back from earth, this is absorbed by greenhouse gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, ozone, oxygen, है ना? And when this is trapped by these greenhouse gases, it is this this greenhouse effect that sustains life on this planet. It is this heat trapped by these greenhouse gases that is responsible for running the various biogeochemical cycle, oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle. And later on this is entirely released back to space. Now with the increase in content of greenhouse gases, this heat trapping potential has increased with more and more greenhouse gases and some of the man-made greenhouse gases like chlorofluorocarbon. One molecule of chlorofluorocarbon can trap 10,000 times more heat than one molecule of carbon dioxide. So this increase in greenhouse gases, ultimately they all are released back to atmosphere, but the heat is released back to atmosphere, but the increasing concentration of greenhouse gases in atmosphere has enhanced the heat trapping potential, and therefore the temperature is rising, leading to flooding of low-lying areas, isn't it? Loss of numerous coral islands, flooding of densely populated low-lying areas. So heat, global warming is taking place. This is causing global warming. At the same time, various solid particles are also released into the atmosphere by various human activities. At the same time, increasing amount of solid material is being pumped into the atmosphere. And this solid material that is being pumped into the atmosphere act as parasol or umbrella. This solid material acts as parasol which reflects back the incoming solar radiation, does not allow them to reach the earth, and it has cooling effect. दो opposite activities कर रहे हैं हम लोग. ये second activity लोग नहीं बात करते. Now the solid material that is being pumped into the atmosphere, that is acting like a parasol umbrella, reflecting heat back to space. The जो high flying jets होते हैं ना, jet planes, they have increased the cloud cover over Atlantic by 5%. 5% से उनका cloud cover बढ़ गया है. ये कहते हैं if this cover were worldwide, temperature would decrease to produce ice age. इतना decrease हो जाएगा. अब scientists are unable to find out whether these two are going to cancel out each other or not. Extreme events will increase. ठंड में बहुत ठंड, winters will be very cold, summers may be very hot, and such extreme events won't be viable for survival of human species. That will be highly detrimental for human species. Are you getting this? Now we are coming on some conceptual part. Impact the role of culture in man environment relation. ये कल करते हैं बेटा, आज बच्चे भी नहीं आए. It is very conceptual. how our culture determines what type of cultural landscape, how man will interact with the environment. Our culture determines how man will interact with the environment to produce a cultural landscape. It's very conceptual. I'll discuss tomorrow because a lot of people will miss it.
Sir, you told about rise in aspiration level, right?
Rise in aspiration level
Any,
is linked
sir,
with.
is there any implementations are taken by government or economists?
Yes, all over the.
Thank you, sir.
You are not able to hear me?
Now I can hear you.
I am saying, key what is happening as the per capita income is increasing, the disposable income is increasing, everybody is spending more than his need. Now he's moving towards greed. Government cannot directly enforce laws that you cannot eat this. If you are your earning is 1 crore rupees per month, others person earning is 1 lakh rupees per month, the way of expenditure, the disposable income will be different. You will travel in a different car, you will travel live in a different bungalow, you will eat different types of foods. Maybe they may be their impact in their production process may be very much detrimental to environment. On the other hand, a person is having 1 lakh rupees of income, he will subsist on only those goods which he can need, on which he can survive. So government cannot force you. So what does the government do? Government, the basic cause of greenhouse gas is energy. How energy is in, for example, planetary food diet. There are non-veg diet increase the emission of greenhouse gases. There are certain diets which increase emission of greenhouse gases. Government can increase the minimum support price for those crops which are less which release less greenhouse gases. So that way government can bring about changes in the pattern of cropping pattern. Secondly, government can develop new modes of energy generation which are less polluting. So even with increase in disposable income, the environmental cost of environment and the disposal of waste will decrease. Okay, beta.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Thank you, sir.
okay, beta.
Thank